What's going on, everybody? So I've had a few days with the E34 after I put down the new numbers on the dyno. I've been kind of getting to enjoy it, kind of feel it out, see how it is. So I figured let's go for our first drive together, and I'm going to talk about how I feel about this thing. Basically, first off, turbo noises and some pulls on camera for you guys. Secondly, I want to go over my impressions about, how this E34 is handling a 600 horsepower motor, how the car feels, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, basically all that sort of stuff. Basically what to expect if you get into the realm of a over 600 crank horsepower engine in your E34, because it is quite a beast. It is a whole new level, and I just kind of want to talk about it. And yeah, so let's go ahead and fire this thing up and get on the road. Obviously there's a few things on this car that I need to address that bother me, but I'm gonna look beyond those for the video. Like the heavy clutch pedal, I hate. The shifter's a little sticky. I got some front end wobbles. So there's some things that have to be sorted on this car. When you build a car like this, you start to focus strictly on the driveline and the engine and making power, and you kind of forget about everything else because so much money gets dumped into the engine and drivetrain that you just forget the car has other components. And this car, I went through the whole thing, but we're getting at the point where it's been, probably four years since I've, kind of done everything. And 4 years for a lot of these components isn't bad, but when you look at the horsepower that's being sent through everything, you start to kind of get a little, things wear quicker, right? So the first thing I want to talk about with this car is the reliability. And at this power level, which, as a reminder, 559 wheel horsepower and 586 wheel torque, that is wheel numbers on a dyno-com, never even heard of it. It's similar to a dyno jet, I think. That, if you take into account 50% drivetrain loss, which is about an average in the automotive world, you're looking at like 640 wheel or 640 crank horsepower, 670 crank torque, which is insane. So if you're talking reliability wise, we're kind of at the end of this engine's lifespan, and so far, fingers crossed, knock on wood, I've driven it a few times, we're all good, but I have to be kind of courteous of how I'm driving it. With that amount of torque, you can turn your rods into spaghetti pretty quick, so I have to be mindful of getting into boost at higher RPMs. I can't load the engine at low RPM, because if I'm hitting 586 torque and loading it meaning I'm hitting that torque as a slow buildup, that is when you'll damage it. After about 5,000 RPMs, it doesn't matter. The torque doesn't really play a factor. This is what I've heard from horsepower and tuning guys, so I'm going to trust what they have to say. So I can't just floor it at 1,500 and watch it go up. It has lost all naturally aspirated driving capability or characteristics. It does not drive like a naturally aspirated car. It is so far from a naturally aspirated car, which has its positives and its setbacks. The whole thing is, a big turbo car is fun as hell because you are in a car that feels like nothing, and then boom, you get hit with a load of horsepower, and it is badass. But it's not super drivable in a day-to-day because you have to basically wind it out to get the feeling. And with the main thing about this car is where it's at now is it's damn near hardly a road car. And that may sound like an exaggeration, but with this much power and the way you have to drive it with the revving it out, you're talking, you are going very fast, very quick, and you need wide open roads to kind of experience what you want to experience. Because if you're redlining it every time you're doing a pull to get in a boost, you're winding the car out and you're gonna go fast. I mean, I'll try to get some speedometer clips, which is going to be very hard because I have to shift and hold the steering wheel. But we're going over 100 miles an hour before you even think about it. And in the day-to-day world, you're already arrested and you're already out of room, or you're in traffic You have to, like, I only drive this car basically like later at night, or like right now I'm gonna hopefully have enough, you know, ability to enjoy it even with people on the road. But it's kind of got to be wide open roads, you know, chill area. It can't be congested. It can't be, you know, there's a lot that goes into it to drive this car, and that I think is the main con to this car. If we're talking about, you know, pros and cons, let's go ahead and do a little bit of a pull here. And you can hear that she obviously spins now. So we do not have a second gear anymore. And that's not a big deal because I can obviously just up my tire sizes, which eventually we'll do. This car's on Achilles ATR Sports, like 255/35 or 255/40. That's not a very wide tire, and it's not a very good tire. So to think that it took the amount of horsepower it takes to finally get these to spin is pretty impressive. But anyway, back to what I was saying. The biggest con with this car is the lack of, you know, how it's a street car anymore. And that's not to say turbo cars can be built very streetable. It's just kind of the route I've taken, how it was tuned, the turbo that's on it. It's all just kind of compiles into basically just the way this car drives. And it's not a boosted low RPM car, it's a high up boost car. And like I said, you just have to drive it aggressive, and that means it's easy to get in trouble in the everyday world. So, and a lot of thought goes into driving this car, man. Every pull is basically like a fingers crossed that it doesn't blow up, because we are at those torque and horsepower levels. Maybe not those horsepower levels, but we're at those torque levels. And yes, that can all be tuned out, but as of right now, I'm not going to do that. So it's kind of like every time you do a pull, I'm kind of like this, because I'm like, oh, I'm going to hear something, boom. But you can't think about it. When you think about it is when it happens. If you just send it, you're better off. So that's arguably the biggest con about the car. Nothing else is really bad about it, and you'll see it's a freaking riot. We have to get away from this relentless traffic. So another thing that goes into the cons, the drivability, which you'll see when we get into the corners, is it's not a very cornerable car anymore. You know, whereas as an NA car, and I'll talk about this when I do the SV2 review video, you can ring that car out in the corners and it doesn't feel scary. It feels proper. That's really how BMWs feel. But at this car, at this point, it's pretty much a dog unless you're in boost. And when you're in boost, you can't get into boost in a corner because you will kill yourself. So it's not really like a drivetrain or a drive cornering car anymore. It's a straight line killer, which is what it's built for, and you can't be mad at that because that's just how the road I've gone. I have my NA cars, so I'm not mad about that. But that's just something to note. That's when people kill themselves, is when they try to hit boosts and stuff in corners. That's not, if I'm spinning second and third is a bit iffy, do you really want to hit that going into a turn? No, not at all, man. You gotta be set up. You gotta be ready to go. So, you can't mess around. See, like that's third gear. I just spun third, which is so wild. And I'm thrilled at the fact that this car finally does that, because one of the other craziest things about this car is that it took, so let's just start. So one of the topics I want to talk about in this video is how well an E34 handles power. And this is the craziest thing about this car. I've been in Turbo E30s, Turbo E36s, E46s, so many fast BMWs, and especially E30s, E36s. Those cars, when you get above like 400 horsepower, are the rowdiest things ever. Like, they are insane. They like, I have videos, if you guys follow me on Instagram, when, you know, Zach finished his car, making a 450 wheel, you just mash the gas and you're doing donuts, you're spinning, you can manji through third gear. There's no drivability and like stability in the car anymore. It's like a full-fledged like missile, and it's insane. And those are obviously fun in their own way. But what's crazy about that is E34's comparison, this car hooked every gear up until I made about 500 wheel horsepower. Like, do you understand how crazy that is, that this car on 255s has hooked until it takes 500 wheel, and that is a lot of power. 500 wheel, not 500 crank, 500 wheel to let loose these rear tires. And that is the craziest thing about this car, because like an E36, for example, E30 will roast tires at like 300 wheel. And even though this car spins now, and literally I've had people back me up on this. I know a guy that made 480 in his E34, no tire spin. It is literally like the 500 wheel, 500 torque, 500 horsepower reigns where you finally start to spin your tires. And that is just immense power to take to let the car loose. These things are so well put together and so solid. They're insane. They're insane what they can do and what they can hold. And now I have passed the realm of being able to grip and stuff, which sucks, but I don't really care. I'm not like drag racing. I don't need grip, so spinning second's really fun. But yeah, this car is so, I mean, it's not even that heavy of a car. It's 3,300 pounds, 300 pounds more than E36, but something about the way the suspension's set up, just everything about it, it just grips, it hooks. I know there's a lot of factors, tire brands, suspension stiffness and all that, but I just have to say it is very impressive what this car does with the power level and what it takes to get it to be kind of a rowdy car. And even though it spins second now, it still drives super solid. Like, you're still, like, even when you're spinning, it doesn't kick out. It keeps you straight. You're basically doing a straight line spin, which is super like tolerable. And like I don't have the skill that like people that drift have, so like for me to say like it's easy to control the car at that power means a lot, because it does mean a lot, because I can't manji and stuff, so like people that do that are insane. So this car like holds itself down really well. I gotta get away from this traffic, dude. It's driving me up a wall. First gear is not usable as it always was. On camera how intense that is, but dude, let me just say we were well above the speed limit very quickly. And but like I don't know if you can tell through the camera, but like it's easy to drive, you know, like you're doing these crazy pulls, you're eating through the speedometer, but it's just easy to drive. And here, like, here's some corners, so like I'll probably stay in fourth to avoid like accidentally hitting boost. And it's still a cornerable car, but you're not making boost in the corners, so but you can still drive the hell out of it, you know? Make a little bit of boost, bumps, like you can still drive it, still make boost, and it's still fun, but it's a straight line car. We know this. This thing is insane. So insane, yet still so freaking solid. That is the main thing that I can't exaggerate enough, how solid the car can feel. Like, that is, these are wild numbers. These are numbers that a brand new M5 is like making. Like this car, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm pretty sure this car will beat an F90 M5 in a race. It almost positively should. But that, you're talking a modern car that's like 4,500 pounds to a 3,300 pound car with no safety features. And it is such an exhilarating experience, but also just how crazy it is that it doesn't really feel like what it is. It does not feel like a crazy horsepower car. And I've been saying this ever since my car made 400 horsepower. These things hold their power so freaking well. It's hard to even tell that they're as intense as they are. And that's just another statement to how well E34s are put together. You know, so I'll do a little brake boost here. That's spinning third. Depending on the road surface and how I'm kind of shifting, it will spin third, which is freaking sick. But yeah, the quality of these E34s numbers and how they're put together is just insane. How not rowdy a high horsepower car can feel, and it's just really cool and impressive, and I can't get over that enough, because I really thought this car would be like scary to drive at this level, but it's just not. It helps you drive, and it's very easy to drive, and it's just impressive how it's like that, you know. At this power level, I can start to kind of feel like the car hates itself. Like you can kind of, and this might not make sense, but you can kind of just feel the stress and hear the stress on the driveline. And that's another thing about the how strong these cars are. To put into perspective, this is the M50, obviously, as you guys know. ARP headstuds and a head gasket, that's it. Then you have a stock ZF transmission, which we all know can hold crazy power. And then you have a stock drivetrain, stock Weebo, stock CSB, which I haven't checked the condition. They may be starting to roast, but there's nothing that indicates that. A stock medium case diff and stock diff bushings and stock axles, which have actually all ripped boots and have lost all their grease, because that happened 4 years ago when this car was slammed. The boots all ripped, lost the grease, and I'm still running the same axles on this car. And they have been handling over 400 horsepower for 2 years now, and now they're handling over 550 horsepower, and it's 559 horsepower, and it's insane. Feel all my axle boots, dude. I don't have any grease in my axles, and they're chilling. Like you can start to kind of hear things. They sound like things kind of want to twist and give out, but for now they are still holding up. And just to put into perspective, I have done far more than like 10 pulls in this car. This isn't like I've done 3 pulls, it's solid. I have done far more than 10, far more than 20. I've done a lot of pulls. So it's not it can handle it one run and it's dead. It can handle it, and it's really impressive. It feels like I'm getting to the end of kind of the reliability and the structuralness of a lot of these components. Like it seems like these could maybe go at any second, but otherwise they're not bad, and they're hanging in there. But I'm gonna try to get a speedometer shot from second gear for you guys, so bear with me, so you guys can see how it climbs. This thing is insane. It's a monster, but it's a monster in, what is it, a wolf in sheep's clothes. Like, from the outside, it looks totally stock. As you guys know, I redid everything. It's a total sleeper from the outside, and even like driving wise, it holds itself down. Like it's impressive. It's insane, but it's impressive. And that, I think, is the craziest part of this whole car. How it just does what it does, makes the numbers it makes, yet does it in such a well put together, solid feeling. And I think that is the coolest part of the car. I hope you guys can hear how gnarly like this car sounds. That new precision, man, sounds insane. People were saying in the E34, they're saying it sounds like electronic. The ball bearings like scream on it. I don't know if it's because like maybe it wants to blow up soon. Because I got it secondhand. It's an older turbo, or what? But it screams and it sounds gnarly. I'll roll down that window and do another pull. Give you guys a couple more pulls, and I'm gonna head home. I don't want to beat this thing up too much right now, you know. I'm starting to get some smelly smells after a couple 4th gear pulls. Before we just end it out some pulls, the thing is an insane car, insane fun, and it does all this while still feeling like a freaking BMW 5 Series. It's still comfortable. It still feels solid. It is really insane what these E34s can do and what they can handle. And I'm amazed. But yes, there's some drawbacks. You're getting arrested pretty quickly. It's not all that drivable in many situations, but those are the price to pay for a ton of fun and a high horsepower E34. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will end with a couple polls, no talking. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.